All right. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to another episode of FitFam. This is Miss Natural Olympia Hilary.
And this is Doug, the formulator.
And whew, we just got back from crazy week.
Yeah, crazy week. But first, let me mention this. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell to make sure you get notifications whenever we do one of these things.
Absolutely. You're looking awful tan.
Did you mean orange? Show weekend. So the
Oompa Loompas
yeah,
coming
the
out of you.
tan is still very much here. So actually that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the super seminar and USAs we just got done with this last weekend.
But the takeaways,
Yeah,
the takeaways, so
yeah.
that you can really get some of the highlights from each area of mindset, nutrition, exercise, supplementation. And it was phenomenal.
It was phenomenal. It was also like when you see behind the scenes and then you see everything that's going on behind the scenes and then everything that's happening on the stage, it's like it feels like this organized chaos that you just keep rolling with and rolling with, and somehow it all just comes together. And it comes together because we have the best team on the planet. So first, before we go into all of the awesome takeaways, let's first acknowledge this team of ours and what they were able to pull together.
Absolutely. And basically, what we're talking about is we pulled off for the first time ever the basically three giant, I'd say seminars, but things going on at the same time. One was the seminar for health professionals, which in itself is pretty crazy because you have to bring in all these speakers, deep chemistry level speakers, but then also people to help motivate, inspire, and then systems creators so that clinics can know what to do and be able to train them.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, we put on a seminar at the same time, and many of the times together for the public, for it to come to, for them to learn how to, learn what they need to do to improve their health and dig down deep and, set their goals. And then at the same time, hosted the USA national national bodybuilding championships, and all of them going on at the same exact time. A lot of times in different rooms, a lot of times in the same room, and just so that we can kind of get context of that, as Hillary's referring to the staff, and they were rock stars. We've never done it before.
Rock
I
stars.
doubt if
Never.
anyone's ever done it before.
We've definitely never tried to combine all of these different
Events.
especially worlds. And man, I'm so inspired by our team and their effort and their willingness. Everybody was so willing to do different jobs, not just their own job, but step in and help with other jobs and create a magical weekend. And the amount of stress and other things that they had to deal with without even from the outside looking in, you'd never know, is remarkable. So, it was phenomenal, and they created a magical weekend for a lot of people.
And I think that's the first takeaway that I want to share with people is one of the main reasons you want to work to have optimal health and not just get by. And what I mean by that is usually it's very easy for people, and the data backs this up, that most Americans' health is just enough to get by each day based on a normal schedule, right? Your work, your life, different things like that, the normal stresses. But then when an additional stress is added to the body, that's when usually disease happens,
Hmm.
acidity happens, we freak out mentally. And those things that are happening shouldn't be causing all of the stress, the acidity, the anxiety, and that in our life. But it's because our health is at such a low floor, as Ben would say, Ben Hardy would say, our floor is so low that it's making it so that anything disrupts it. Anything disrupts it.
Mm.
And the thing about the staff this weekend that you mentioned, is that we kept adding layers of stress, layers of stress, layers of stress, and they keep handling it, handling it, handling it. And that's really one of the reasons you want to reach optimal health. And it's like I'd always tell my dad growing up, he's like, why do you have to have all these things on your car to make it so fast when you can only go, you're only supposed to go 55 or whatever it was. And it's like, you need them there. You don't need it for the cars, but for the body, you need it there to be able to be there when it's called on. And
100%.
and it's nice to know it's there. It's nice to
Which
know your strength, your health, your energy is there what it's called on, you can perform without it causing the stresses to the body that cause disease. The stresses actually are there, and you're like, I can rise to the occasion. And that's one of the reasons that you really should work on improving your health, and the staff, like you said, did great.
Yeah, which is why you always want health to be your number one, right? Because no matter what happens externally, you're able to rise to the occasion and be your best self to help other people,
That's
right?
it. And so,
And isn't it amazing that Doug can relate anything back to cars and them being fast? It's really remarkable how you can do that. Anyways, okay, let's move on.
let's go. So we're talking, we've been gone a week, right? Today's Tuesday. We started last Tuesday. We started driving for 8 hours to Las Vegas. We had trucks, we had trailers, we had cars. You know, it was amazing how many people that made it there safe. And we're so grateful for that. And
That's actually very true.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Yeah.
And then there for a while, that whole stretch between Phoenix and Vegas is known as the most dangerous highway in America. So really cool. Glad everyone made it. But we started off the weekend, once we got set up and everything, we started off Thursday afternoon. And it was really cool because the concept was to start off and to bring the worlds together. And I'm just going to give a takeaway from it, and then maybe you can jump to the next talk. Whatever. My
Sure.
takeaway from the right at the beginning, the entry of it, is this: is like, here is the natural bodybuilders, the best in the world, drug tested, right? You have these top holistic practitioners that are already fighting the battle against pharmaceutical companies. And, you know, we taught them this weekend about big food and all that. And then you have the public, like, that are truly there wanting to learn. And there's like, man, we're just getting bombarded with so much from every angle. What's the truth? But they showed up to learn the truth. And the takeaway from the beginning was, look, here's a place that we're going to give data, but try to present it in a way that's understandable, where people can get information to make choices in their life, whether they're professional athletes like you, whether they're the public or they're the doctors. That there was just this, you could feel it. They're like, we want to know the truth. We're so sick of being thrown, from here to there and everything else, and being told all this. And I just felt that from that first, talk, was like, people are like, we're here to find out the truth.
Cool.
It was
I
really
love that.
cool.
Really cool. So, and just as I didn't make it to most of the talks. I was busy trying to prepare for stage and getting ready to compete. So a lot of these will be your takeaways, and if I have anything to say, I'll chime in a little bit. So after that, you spoke.
Yeah, and it was about, the conversation we have a lot, the similarities between the healthiest people that we've researched in the world, the Hunzas, right? All the people in Sardinia, Italy, and all these blue zones, and professional athletes.
Yeah, and I actually was able to hear a little bit of that
cool.
one.
So what's the
Love that.
takeaway from being a professional natural athlete? What's the takeaway between the similarities of your lifestyle and the people that live to be 110, 115 years of age?
Yeah, I think one of the takeaways for me is that clean food, right? So I think even more than specifically the diet that you follow is the cleanliness of the diet that you follow, and just how clean is your food and how close to nature is your food. And it's interesting, I think, because you can go through almost any nutrition plan or diet plan and make it that much better by making it that much cleaner, regardless of the one that you're following.
Absolutely.
And so I think simply eliminating as much processed food as possible will create such a better longevity for all of us.
Yeah, and quality of life while we're here. And I think that that's probably the greatest takeaway from the talk is that. And that was the point of the talk, to set the weekend up, right?
Yeah, because I think one of the things that you mentioned is the difference between how much. Now, when I say meat, I'm talking turkey, chicken, fish, really for me. But you're talking about the difference between how much meat I consume versus how much you consume, which is I probably consume 2 or 3, 4 times that you do, right? But we make sure what we're consuming is as clean as possible, of course, with Butcher Box, and making sure it's grass fed and all of that. So, anyways, I just love that concept.
No, and I think that's a great way to start, because the key is, and you'll see the theme through the weekend was about the damaging effects of processed food and chemicals that we get in America that we don't get in other countries, as we mentioned in the past. But we went deep, and that was kind of that entry of like, here's what the difference is. And it was purity and the cleanliness of our foods that really wasn't an issue 15, 20 years ago. It is today, and it separates the people, the centenarians, people live above 100 years of age with great health, and these athletes that are competing, you know, in the older years versus people that are just struggling. So that was really good. And then what we did is we broke up into groups.
Hmm.
Right after that, health professionals stayed in the main room, and then the public and the athletes went into another room, and we started training them. And maybe I'll just mention the HPs, and you can mention the other side, the public. With the doctors, what we did is we started training them on how to set up their clinics to be able to help patients holistically, meaning most health professionals, even holistic health professionals, meaning they're working, you know, with nutrition and that, they have one specialty. They do Ayurvedic medicine, they do acupuncture, they do chiropractic and all this, which is great, but they still need help in the other areas of fitness.
Hmm.
And so what we did is separate them and say, okay, what's your specialty and what isn't your specialty, so we can jump in and kind of the Henry Ford it. We'll be the experts in those areas for you, and started lining that out. And the takeaway was how open people that are extremely educated, they went to school 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, saying, yeah, that's not my area of expertise. I'm willing to learn. And I think the takeaway for that group was the willingness to learn the areas that they needed help with, instead of like, oh crap, I'm older and I'm not supposed to, you know, not know about those things and I'm embarrassed. But people just being willing. And I think that for me, even I was like, man, I just need to be more willing to learn and be a sponge in every area and work to improve. And I think that'd be the challenge for everyone here, especially the ones that didn't come to the super seminar. Be a sponge, be willing to improve, because these are the things that make the difference so that you can be more present with your family.
Cool.
And so in the public area, super cool. We got the ability for Dr. Lankering talking about EMF, radiation, things
Mm.
like that. And it was
I love
huge.
Dr.
I
Lankry.
know you were able to see that. He was
I didn't,
awesome.
I wasn't able to see it, but
And he talked about the importance of just being aware of all the stuff with your cell phones, the research now with the cell phones and the brain and 5G and all these things. Like, look, we can't just hide from it anymore. They really are affecting us. Make sure you wear your EMF shirts, or you do little things to try to stay away from the radiation as much as possible. And just being aware is part of the battle.
right. Something kind of funny about that is that Nevaeh had her food, and you know, she didn't have any way to warm it up at home. You know, you have your stove and you warm it up, or the air fryer. She didn't have any way to warm it up, and so she ran and used, you know, you use the microwave as an example of the MF and how much it's putting off and everything. And and she ran in, threw on one of the OG Shields shirts, nuked her food, and then ate it. And so she's like, I did as much as I could. I wanted warm food. So anyways, I thought that was funny. But yeah, so I heard Dr. Lankering was amazing. And right after Dr. Lankering was Nevaeh Lowe, our child, and she did phenomenal. I was so taken back. Do you want to mute that guy?
Yeah.
I was so taken back how well she did. And my takeaway from what she shared from stage, because she is a personal trainer, and what I took away was the external um, view of these women with an internal change. And so she would constantly show these before and afters, right? And it was an external difference between their bodies from one
Mhm.
point to another. And yet it was all of this internal stuff that was happening. And you can't always judge from an external viewpoint the health of an individual, right? So how she did it and explained the transformation with these women was based on these women that are being fed nutritious dense foods that their bodies need, and and not being starved of the food they need, but being fed with the nutrients that they need. And then moving their bodies, going from not moving their bodies the way they need to be moved, and with, weights, and also cardiovascular, and getting a support system so that mentally they feel better. And so I loved being able to see the internal work done on an external viewpoint. And each before and after that she pulled up was something different that a different woman gained in confidence by following these focused, intense thought, nutrition, exercise, and supplement principles. And I thought it was really cool.
That is cool. And what was amazing to me is I know at first when she got up there, I'm looking around the room, there's like, 100 and something people in that breakout room, and a lot of them are doctors, and they're supposed to be in another room, and they wanted to be in there. And they, but you felt this like, wait, here's this 21-year-old woman, sorry. And, what does she bring to the table that, they don't? It's almost like a few of them I felt, and I could have been wrong, felt like, who is she to be up there to talk about these transformations? And then it was one after another, before and after pictures, before and after pictures. And she started off with, like, I was raised different. I was raised, from a kid being taught these principles of macronutrients, and, like I didn't know math very well, but I could count macros and that type stuff. And the proof's in the pudding was kind of the cool thing at first. And she did a great job of like, here's the results. Like, I don't care if I'm 10 years old or 100 years old. Here are the results we're getting from people that we work with, that follow our program. And it was really, really cool because this paradigm shift happened in the room. Like, oh my gosh, let's listen. Like, look at what's happening here. And I think that my other takeaway, besides what you mentioned from her talk, really was that a lot of people do work to get these outward results, and they jump to a lot of these things and some things we believe in, peptides and stuff like that, but they jump to them first instead of the lifestyle. And Nevaeh, all of her clients and her husband Dylan's clients go completely free of anything except for proper nutrition, exercise, and supplementation. And their before and afters are
And the why
dramatic.
at the very beginning.
Why, you're
Right.
right. And it just goes to show that for 95% of the population, that's what they need. And that's all they need. And then there are some that after you get going, yes, these other things can help speed it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that looking for the magic pill, and the magic pill is lifestyle. Hire a coach instead of spending thousands of dollars on that. I'd rather spend $2,000 or $3,000 for 4 or 5 months on a coach and move forward. So that was really, really cool. And then Dr. Porter, who was one of the people that helped sponsor this weekend, the World's Leading Authority in Brain Health, gave
He's
quite a few
incredible.
talks. And I think the most powerful talks he gave were on sleep and how to prepare the body for sleep. And they use a thing called Brain Tap. I'd highly recommend. You can ask us about it. We can send you some links. But it was more of preparing the body. Do you truly prepare for sleep? Do you truly say, what you're grateful for before you go to bed, and let the day go and set your room up and do it, spend 10 to 15 minutes each day and speak your affirmations before you go to bed. And we many times don't do that.
Mm-mm.
And it's a game changer from how well you sleep, the length of time you stay in REM sleep. That got me. That study got me. It was like, wait a second, how long you stay in deep sleep um, is affected by the 15 minutes before you go to bed. And I'm like, dang, because I always compare and to us, we're a little competitive, and she always whoops me at sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. And I'm like, what the heck? Well, I have a hard time shutting my brain off. It's been my excuse, but I'm going to follow these techniques now to see if I can catch up to her a little bit.
Listen, if you maybe increase your cardiovascular health and spend a little more time in the gym and exhaust, you got to
Gym,
exhaust
you mean on the treadmill?
in the gym.
Oh, please.
Might help. Just kidding. Yeah, I love, so even you just speaking that right now, I love the concept of us taking that on right now. I think maybe we challenge each other right now to start it and keep going. So tonight and here on out.
Okay, so let's get going.
Cool.
And so Thursday ended up phenomenal. On Friday, we started again, everyone in the main room. At this point, we're up to about 600 people. And we talked a lot about the bombardment on the cells. And I think my the last little talk before we started getting to the thought leaders that were there. I'd love for you to talk about some of those. But my last talk Friday morning before we got into bringing some of the focus intense thought people was more on the research on these things called phthalates. That if you haven't heard of phthalates, go to a previous episode of FitFam and check that out. But what we did is we laid the foundation of here is the reality of all the major chemicals that are in our food today, that are even in our synthetic supplements, that's just in our lifestyle. And we need to be aware of them. And we set up the rest of the weekend on how we were going to take care of them. But it's serious. We can't overlook it anymore. You can, if you pretend like, oh, it's really not that big a deal, the chemicals we allow in America versus other places, like, making a big fuss over it. I laid out the research of the increase in disease on almost every disease by 30%, the reduction in mortality, the increase in damage to the brain to really hurt our focus intense thought, cognitive function, short-term, long-term memory, all of those things just from the chemicals in our food and the need to get rid of those. And then we started talking about what we were going to do to get rid of them. And after all that heaviness, then we brought one of our thought leaders to the table.
Okay, so right before we get into the thought leader,
Sure.
I'm gonna reverse a little bit and talk about David Meltzer for just a second. Although I wasn't able to listen to
I
him.
forgot about that. That was our first keynote Thursday before Friday.
On our way home, and Doug and I took different vehicles on our way home, and something that was really cool is that on the way home, we had 8 hours of travel. Marley, my son, Nevaeh, my daughter, and Dylan, her husband, we traveled together. And we just kind of were talking about the different takeaways from the weekend. And they had mentioned something that they loved from David Meltzer was when he says, be more interested than interesting, right? Be more interested than interesting. And I've heard that from him many times. And I think if we can use that you know, advice, it makes it so much less stressful to be in rooms with really great people and people that have so much to offer. Because if we walk in thinking, oh, I have to be so interesting, we're only thinking about selfishly about ourselves, right? It's just so selfish. But if we walk into a room and be like, okay, what can I learn in this room? Who can help enlighten me and ask questions? It changes the whole dynamic and it makes it less scary. And that's something that I've really tried to work on. And I thought, wow, how cool that in this car, that was a real big takeaway that they got. And so I just thought that was really cool.
That is huge.
Yeah.
That is huge. And it's one of the things that David taught me at the very first, that exact same thing about, I told him, I said, sometimes I get in rooms now with different people and it's weird that I get nervous about it because we're so used to being around professional athletes and all that stuff. But then you get a person that you've looked up to that you haven't met before. But if you go in there with interested, they feel that too. They feel that vibe that you truly care versus you're trying to impress them. And most people that we're talking about, whether it be athletes or thought leaders, motivators or doctors or different things like that, they are around people that are always trying to make themselves, more interesting to them, and they get tired of that. And to have someone truly interested, they'll actually give more.
Yeah.
They'll actually give more. So really good point. And so he was the first awesome thought leader. By the way, we had these phenomenal speakers that if we only had one of them, that's how most seminars are. And we had them just going and going and going.
Yeah, and all of the amazing doctors that were in the breakouts and in the main room, Dr. John Brimhall, Dr. Brett Brimhall,
Dr. Harris.
Dr. Mark Harris,
Dr. Langren.
oh my gosh, Dr. Ridgway. I mean, there's just incredible from every genre, from every space. It was just crazy weekend.
Crazy weekend. And if you're feeling a little FOMO, you should. All right. So the second thought leader was Forrest Griffin.
Okay, I did not go to Forrest talk. I love Forrest Griffin, by the way. Like the coolest down to earth guy ever.
I made a huge mistake with him.
I did hear that there was some like breaking bone video.
Well, I told him, I says, hey, the docs have been and the public have been through some crazy talks already. to get them set up for the weekend, right? Like I mentioned, like we want to lay it on the truth of the problems today, and then we're going to give them the answer. Well, they just got all the problems. So it was like, you could feel it, right? They're like, man, can we eat anything? Can we do anything? And so I said, you need to really, get them going. And that was a huge mistake.
Don't tell Forrest to get people going. He'll make
So,
it
so it's,
happen.
here's his first 3 videos. First video. Here, let me show you guys something. Guy kicks someone, video on the screen. We're talking 20-foot screens, right? 3 of them. And he kicks someone, then the leg breaks. You see a leg bend back the other way. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me show you something else. Shows another one.
Oh, no.
Shows another one. This guy getting knocked out and blood everywhere. But then he turned it around and said, why would I pick this sport? And he went into a great principle, though, of that you must really love it. And you've got to find what your passion is.
What you really love.
What you really love. And once you do that, then you find the people that are already great at that and follow what they did, but put your own spin on it. Make sure to put your own spin on it. But you do need to follow a system, a pattern of proven techniques that people have been successful with, so you don't make years of mistakes, that you can, turn decades into days. And what a really cool thing like that.
That is
So it
really
was really,
cool.
I'm so glad he was there. We had a lot of these thought leaders that the reason we were able to have so many of them, right? That you have the David Meltzers and the Forrest Griffens and LaShawn Merritts and, Ben Hardy's and all them, was because majority of them came in at their own dime or at, a hundredth of what they charged,
Right.
because they cared about a conference on health, when usually you spend your whole budget on one of them to come. So it was just phenomenal.
Yeah,
just
no,
phenomenal.
the fact that they were all there was really incredible. And talking to the kids on the way home, something that they loved about Forrest Griffin is he said, I would rather regret the choices I made than regret the choices I didn't make. And they all loved that. So I thought that was really cool.
That's really cool. And so then it kept going with the doctors, and Dr. Harris gave this talk on fasting, which I think he's the world's leading authority.
He's
on it because
definitely
he
the
fasts.
world's leading authority on fasting. And something that I like that you had mentioned, I think it happened a little bit later in the weekend, but LaShawn Merritt asked him, how somebody like me who's never fasted, tell me how I start. And Dr. Harris was so beautifully articulate on that. And he's like, start with 24 hours. What a relief for anybody that's never fasted before.
When he fasts 20 days at a time.
Yeah, when Dr. Harris fasts weeks at a time, right? For him to be able to be on such a level to know, listen, let's just start it how you could finish it. And so he says start with 24-hour fast and then go to 48-hour fast. And then what did he say? And then a 3-day fast, and it'll change your life. Brilliant. I thought that was so brilliant when you told me that's what he said.
Yeah, that was really cool. And I think that the key at that that I liked was a lot of times when you're so far advanced, it's hard to kind of come back to the basics.
Yeah.
And he understood where LaShawn was at. And LaShawn Merritt, right? 3-time Olympic gold medalist.
Is it a
And
4-time?
and 3-time Olympic, 11-time world
Oh,
champion,
okay.
right? And so in the 400. And so basically, I think one of the cool things from that is going back to David Meltzers, whole thing is that LaShawn is in the audience. So here I have this Olympic medalist after he spoke. He was second row
Ah,
in the audience.
that's a huge takeaway.
And people are talking about him, trying to get over to get pictures with him, right? And everything. And he raises his hand and says, hey, I'm used to eating, 6 meals a day. I've never gone through more than 3 hours without eating food. But I've listened this weekend and I want to start fasting. What can I do? That was some humility. It was like,
Well,
he basically was more interested
yeah.
than being interesting. Back to Meltzer saying. And so
I just think that's the coolest.
that is the
part.
coolest.
I can't even help it.
I like that.
Okay.
And so the fasting thing was big. And one thing that was really came out, and that was all the research showing that when you're fasting, there's certain nutrients that do 2 things. One, speed up the results of the fasting, the cell autophagy and that, and also make sure that the body doesn't go into catabolism mode and maybe cause some other issues, which can happen when some people fast, especially if they do this, intermittent fasting every day thing. And so it's really important that if you do a fast, you download the Healthy Habits Tracker. It's free. Download it. And you put OHS, the number 4 life as the code. So it's free. OHS for life. And once you download the Healthy Habits Tracker, there's a fasting feature on there. And whether you're doing 24, 48, or 72, and you can order the fasting kit. It's just these supplements you take during it to ensure you get the most out of it. And that was really cool how we emphasized that to LaShawn, saying, look, now here's what's going to happen. You are going to get hungry because you've never done that before. But if you add these nutrients, it's going to make it easier to do. Plus, you're going to get so much more benefit that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that was so well worth it. And so it's really, really cool.
I love that. Are we still on Friday?
We were, but we're going to jump ahead a little
Well,
bit.
no, let's
I
do,
think.
what do you think about this? Let's wrap it up with this, and then we will do
The final 2 days.
Yeah.
Another one. Let's
Yeah.
do that. So let's finish up on
Love it.
Friday then. You know, one of the things that we did is we wanted to bring in all of the different aspects of health. And
Yeah.
we brought in a subject we talked about a little bit, but not really maybe in detail, was peptides. And Ashley Inness on cellular peptide came and spoke, and it was really cool because she spoke to the doctors on you need in your toolbox the things that are not drugs, they're not prescriptions that don't force the body, but help remind the body of what's possible. And that's what peptides are. And I thought she did a great job of that, of like, you have your mindset, nutrition, exercise, supplementation, but sometimes the body needs to be reminded on how to recover faster or to send nutrients to the brain, or whether it be even
So
for like
cool.
cravings and weight loss. And that's what peptides do, is they remind the body of these chemicals that it used to make that maybe now it's not because it's so focusing on just living because it's so toxic. You know?
Right.
And it was really neat to do. So health professionals, there's ways you can use peptides and do it within your clinic. I'd highly recommend to get hold of a cellular peptide. In the public, there are times when you definitely can benefit from them as long as you're using it within the right concept of, like, you know, mindset.
Right. Just
nutrition.
not jumping the steps. Yeah. Cool.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And then Dr. Harris talked about more of the chemicals out there today and the problems with them. And I think that was huge. And then, gosh, one other talk, and you can tell me your the final takeaways from Friday. I went into the public room. Is the only talk I did just to the public only, separate from the doctors. And I gave a talk on protein. And my takeaway from that was, as far as feeling the audience, was that they were relieved to hear that they didn't have to get the exact amount only in of protein, and you have to dial it in so exactly, as long as you digest your protein. If you digest your protein, you're going to get a feel for how much you need, and you can follow some certain guidelines if you're trying to build muscle or anti-aging or whatever it might be. But it's about, as you'd mentioned, start with how clean your protein is. Especially if it's meat, you've got to make sure it's antibiotic free majority of the time, grass fed. Once in a while, you can get away with it at a restaurant, but majority of the time. And you've got to digest it. And that's where that digestive milk comes in. If you take your enzymes when you eat protein, you're going to get rid of the risk of most of these diseases today with all of the ones that is autoimmune diseases, things like that. If you just digest it.
Yeah.
So I think that was the take with the audience. Oh my gosh, I just need to digest my protein, keep it clean. There's your answer.
I love that.
All right. So we finished up Friday. Gosh, really?
I don't know that we've finished up Friday. We have a bunch more that happened on.
No, we finished up Friday with these talks.
Oh, you're about to talk about the rest of Friday?
Yeah.
I mean,
And then we'll finish it up. Let's finish Friday, then we'll go Saturday, Sunday. I want to, because I'm so excited about this. We gave them a triple threat Friday evening, right? We went in, bam, 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 and we started off with LaShawn Merritt, 3-time gold medalist. And I'd love to have your takeaway on that. You were a little nervous before that talk, so I don't know how much you
yeah,
heard.
I was doing my best to pay attention to. I was in the green room to try to listen to as much that I could from LaShawn Merritt. I think his charisma is pretty awesome. What a genuine guy. But yeah, tell me what your takeaway was.
My takeaway was the preparation. Was, remember, his whole thing was train for 4 years for 40 seconds. 4 years for 40 seconds. And you have 40 seconds prepared, and you screw up in those 40 seconds, 4 more years. And in that sport, you don't got too many 4 years in a row, right?
Right.
Before that window of time
Right.
is over, that you can perform at the highest level to be, the greatest on the planet. And it was so phenomenal to hear him like, I prepared so much, went over it so much, prepared each day, and he was a disciple of the routine, a disciple of the daily grind. And that's my takeaway from it was he prepared so much that in that day, even those butterflies, he said they just lined up.
Cool.
Instead of like causing problems, they lined up because he was prepared.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
that was awesome. And then, as I mentioned, the thing that for me, because I've heard him say that before, what I didn't get before that I got this time from LaShawn was that he loved the 400, best in the planet, right at it. But he said, I had to learn to love the preparation more because you have 14 years of preparation for a total of 40 seconds of time of the thing you love. So if I didn't love the preparation more, I never would be able to perform at the highest. So a lot of people say, I love playing, but I don't like practice, right? If you didn't love deep down lifting and truly nutrition, even though it's hard, we're
Yeah.
talking about stuff
Oh,
hard,
for sure.
right? And all of these things, then you wouldn't have a happy life. It'd be like this grind, you did for that few seconds of glory. And I thought that was really cool that, that you got to fall in love with the process. You've got to fall in love with looking at things, foods, and pick the healthier foods and do that and exercise and that and find a way to do that.
Love it. Love it.
Next speaker was phenomenal. It was Hilary, triple threat.
This
LaShawn,
guy.
Merritt, Hilary. What was your takeaway from your talk that you felt from the audience?
I think what I was hoping to convey, the biggest thing was no matter what, keep going. That, we can have trials that make us feel like we should give up, or we can have trials that will push us through and, just keep going.
Yeah.
Stay true to your goal. And sometimes it's okay to have the selfish goal.
I love that. Me and Nevaeh were sitting in the front row watching Hilary, and I turned around and seeing the, 500-600 people in the audience watching. And I felt from them that, Hilary at the end of her talk was like, show up, and through all these trials and stuff. And she showed up. She showed up to talk. She showed up to compete. And the audience got that. And all weekend long after that, people would come up and she's like, I needed to hear Hilary. I needed to hear that some of these phenomenal speakers up there, these athletes and the doctors, have a normal life and they're vulnerable and they have stuff happen to them and they have to like fight through it and they have to make mistakes and then they recover. It's just how fast they recover. And I think that was a huge takeaway from the audience from that I think really set the tone because a lot of times people look at the speaker and say, well, if I had a life like them, and they saw, one of the top bodybuilders on the planet struggle, but show up.
Makes me really uncomfortable when you say one of the top bodybuilders on the
Are you?
planet. I mean, I try really hard,
Are you?
but
That's part of the. We're gonna actually have a moment right now. Are you?
top bodybuilders on the planet, natural bodybuilders? I don't know.
How many times have you won Olympia Figure Masters?
3 times.
And is that the top bodybuilder in the world?
We'll continue this talk later.
Back to her talk. Still needs that, but that's hopefully a takeaway from people, because you have to believe in who you are and what's possible in order for the universe to give you the things needed to accomplish it. And you have to do it in a humble way. And a lot of times the humility comes too much versus saying, yeah, I am one of the top bodybuilders in the world, not to take away from anyone else. And I work to be better and inspire others. And so we all have to work on that too. And that's part of the concept of being more interested than interesting, but also owning who you are. And then the last speaker of the day was Alex Guerrero.
Yeah, what a nice guy. What a nice guy, and very direct. And he's a great speaker. He's got it. Yeah. I would say my quick takeaway from him. I was back in the green room again and trying to listen, but I loved when he said you get 10 seconds of high emotion.
Tom Brady's principle.
Oh, I loved that concept because I feel like sometimes I'm highly emotional, both with negative and positive things. And I like the concept of allowing that 10 seconds. Now, I think I'll expand that maybe to like you get like 90 seconds. But I love the concept of never allowing yourself to go too far in one direction
Too
for
long.
too long. That was so cool to me.
Yeah, and remember, Alex Guerrero is Tom Brady's trainer, and he brought up all the Super Bowl rings. And I had two takeaways from it as we close. The 10-second rule, and for him it was 10 seconds because he had to come back in the huddle, and if someone, screwed up, whatever, okay, be pissed at yourself, get mad in that for 10 seconds. Yeah, that sucks. Sorry, da da da. Okay, 10 seconds are up. What's the next play? Here's what we got to do. Forget about it. What's next? Great play, great catch, great job. Let's enjoy, high five, pat on the back. Okay, it's over. Next play. What's up? And I love that. And my other takeaway from it was that he was unapologetic to who he was, what his goals were. And I think that kind of goes to maybe something that, you and others could take a little page from that playbook. What I meant by that is he's like, is there anyone here who's a fan of another team besides he was with, the Patriots? And there was a guy that was this huge fan. He got a shirt on from like Atlanta Falcons or something. He's like, oh yeah, back in whatever year it was that they beat the Falcons, hey, see this ring right here? And he brought out a Super Bowl ring. Yeah, that's the one that we won that year that you didn't, right? And he's kind of playing with them, but not. Then he brought out another ring and another ring and another ring. And he kept like, he was just saying, look, I got it and I apologize, buddy. I'm going to beat up on you. But he kept bringing him up, that he was a champion. And he says, but the point I want to make is that you have to want to win and you have to believe in yourself, but also realize that there's a humility that comes with that of saying the reason that we did is because we followed a system and we kept in that and the grind. And that's the reason one. It wasn't because of me personally and I'm better than you. It was the strategies and the system that you put in place and focusing on the system. And it was really cool to see that. And it was a great way to end the day
I love that.
of bringing that need for not, you have humility, but you also have to have the drive to want to be the best. So it was really cool. So man,
Cool.
we'll finish up the rest of the weekend. Hopefully some of the takeaways is made it so that you've enjoyed this episode. And the final takeaway is if you weren't there, one of the things that we taught was you've got to get in rooms. And whether it's our room or someone else's, get in a room to feel like what we did this weekend. We had the stress of putting it on, but we also had the blessing of learning from
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. You can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to be there. So get in the rooms.
Get in the rooms. As always, this is Miss Natural Olympia Hilary.
And this is Doug the Formulator.
Till next time.
See ya.